Welcome to Basketball Cinema, where we revisit the most important and iconic games in NBA history. I'm Jay Canada, and today we're looking at a 2004 regular season game between the Houston Rockets and San Antonio Spurs. Over the past few weeks here on the channel, we've taken a look at singular moments from individual greats in the NBA. Steph Curry, LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, Charles Barkley, and the importance that those games had in their respective careers. Once again today we're looking at a shining performance from an all-time great, but this game also happens to be one of the most iconic moments in NBA history. In June 2004, Tracy McGrady was dealt in a blockbuster trade from the Orlando Magic to the Houston Rockets. T-Mac was fresh off winning back-to-back scoring titles in the Big O and had put up 28 points a game over a 4-year stretch, cementing himself as one of the NBA's most elite. As expected, McGrady saw his numbers take a bit of a hit when he joined Houston, as for the first time since his formative seasons in Toronto, he would be playing alongside another bona fide all-star in Yao Ming. I'm sure we'll do a deep dive into the fascinating career of Yao Ming at some point here on the channel, but for now I'll point out that he was the sun that the Houston Rockets revolved around, and T-Mac was required to alter his play style to assimilate.
It was basically just like, we got a 7'5", 7'6" dude that, we got to get the ball to. We're going to play inside out. I never played with a big dude, so it was an adjustment for me to play with a big guy. The pace was slower. I had to change my whole game on how I went about it.
And it wasn't immediately roses for the two Rockets as they entered the atmosphere, as over the first 19 games in the 04-05 season, Houston was just 8-11. Individually, Yao was averaging 18 and 8 a game, slightly off his usual pace, while McGrady had limped out the gates, posting just 22 points a game, nowhere near his scoring ceiling. Something I found fascinating when diving into this game is that Rockets head coach at the time, Jeff Van Gundy, was actually in awe of T-Mac's passing ability more than anything, comparing it to other superstar playmakers like LeBron James and Rick Barry.
They're all going to score at this high level, like big time score, not even close to their best trait. It was their passing ability. He is one of the elite passers to have ever played. And so you see those scoring things. I could have put together a tape on the passes. Incredible.
Considering he was a two-time scoring champ, the fact Tracy was routinely hovering around 6 assists per game is actually pretty impressive. Regardless of the slow start, however, both Yao and McGrady would go on to have extremely productive seasons in 2004-2005, and the game we're about to watch was certainly a catalyst for chemical change in their mixture. And on paper, you might not have guessed that, as on December 9th, 2004, the 8-11 Rockets were taking on the 16-4 San Antonio Spurs live on TNT. The Spurs continued to be led by prime Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker. Anybody who's been alive over the past 2 decades already knows the Spurs story.
It's true.
Could the Rockets temporarily halt the machine that was the San Antonio Spurs in this 2004 battle of in-state rivals? Why is this specific game so iconic in the career of Tracy McGrady? I am really excited to show everyone who doesn't already know the answer to that question. McGrady, as expected, was being defended by Bruce Bowen, and on his first attempt was way off the mark. Bowen was an 8-time All-Defensive Team member, and Steve Kerr explained his impact super well on the broadcast.
He reminds me a lot, if you use a football analogy, Deion Sanders would just close off one side of the field, a shutdown guy. That's what Bruce Bowen does for the Spurs. It allows everybody else to defend their own guy.
It's always funny going back to hear Steve Kerr as a broadcaster, but he was actually very good. First points of the game coming from Yao, as he cleaned up a Juwan Howard miss with a nice standing dunk. Back the other way, Spurs pivot Rasho Nesterovic with a tip-in for 2. Tony Parker nailed a wide-open look from 3 in the corner, but veteran Juwan Howard had the answer. Hoop and harm off the T-Mac assist. Manu Ginobili was a starter for the Spurs at this point in his career, and was on his way to averaging about 15 a game on the season. He connected on his first attempt of the game a wide-open triple. Look at this heroic defensive play by Tim Duncan, swallowing up a Yao Ming attempt on the interior. Man, prime Timmy D was no joke on the defensive end. Offensively though, it wasn't pretty for Tim, who went scoreless in the first, including a missed post hook from the block. 6'5" shooting guard Devon Brown checked in for the Spurs and finished a tough floater in the paint. I'll be honest, I have little to no clue who Devon Brown is. McGrady was starting painfully slow, missing another deep 2-point jumper in transition. He then committed a lazy turnover on the drive. Obviously though, he wouldn't be held down forever. Working on the aforementioned Devon Brown, Tracy gave a simple head fake, drew contact, and converted. That was pretty smooth. Even more smooth was this spin and fade from T-Mac, but he missed. It was still a pretty nice move though. Hey, it's Dikembe Mutombo making another appearance on the channel. What's up, big fella? This was a super ugly first quarter, as you can see from the low score, but McGrady was able to finally get loose on the perimeter, raining a 3 all over Brent Barry. Overall though, T-Mac had just 6 points on 2 for 9 shooting in the opening frame. Mercifully, the second quarter started to pick up, as after shedding Manu Ginobili, McGrady was able to drop in a mid-range J. The Spurs star had an answer, as Duncan converted in the paint on an awkward finish from the post. Great cut from Manu, who took a nice feed from Duncan to finish over Mutombo. Tim then working from the post again, going glass as only the big fundamental would. Ginobili then with a straightaway triple off a Tony Parker feed, and just like that, a 9-0 run from the Spurs to get right back into it. To answer that though, we finally get to see Yao Ming putting in some work on the low block, evading a double team by keeping that ball up high and turning with a silky touch on the jumper. I mentioned in the intro how T-Mac admitted to having to alter his game upon arriving in Houston to better pair with Yao Ming. Jeff Van Gundy actually told McGrady when he got there that he wasn't going to win the scoring title again, as he tried to help T-Mac round out as a player. While it didn't earn immediate results, McGrady himself knew that placing an emphasis on Yao was a reasonable idea, considering the talent he possessed.
But highly skilled. I'm talking about can dribble the ball, can make the right passes, not just, making a pass anyway, passing on target, left hand, right hand. He shot 80+% from the damn foul line. He had it, bro. He was highly skilled.
If only he had a tiny bit more durability. I mean, what a specimen. Manu Ginobili was the lone player in this game getting off to a strong start, taking another feed from Tony Parker and nailing a 3. Yao 2 more of his 13 first half points, this time running down the floor and throwing down with the right hand after a nice find from point guard Andre Barrett. T-Mac with another signature turn and fade from the mid-range, nailing one from the Rockets logo on the left side of the court. Duncan wasn't lighting things up offensively, but another block this time on Maurice Taylor. He had 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 blocks in the first half alone. Another monster flush inside from Yao, again little Andre Barrett on the dime. Tracy McGrady was finally able to shed Bruce Bowen for a moment, yet another pull-up midi to give him 12 in the game, and after a handful of free throws, Rockets actually took a 4-point lead into the halftime break. So how do we get some more offense in this game?
I think that Jeff and I are both wondering that. Pretty good defensive teams, but can't throw it in the ocean.
Well, okay then. Scoring started in the second half by Tim Duncan. 2 dribbles and a floater in the middle of the paint. Quick answer from Yao Ming, who turned and faded from the block over his left shoulder. Beautiful touch again from the big man. T-Mac with a great defensive play to pick off a Duncan pass for one of his 5 steals on the game. But in transition, Bob Sura was rejected by Manu Ginobili. Quite a lot of pep in those young Argentine legs. Sura with some revenge though, a wild hook shot from the paint over Bruce Bowen. Moments later though, Tim Duncan had something on his mind.
Here's Duncan. Oh, a facial served up at Yao Ming.
Oh my.
Poor Yao on the business end of that dunk, and by the way, Marv Albert was unmatched in his prime. I mean, that was a great call. Yao getting just a touch of revenge for that poster, as he finished off a floating pass from Bob Sura again with authority. Yao up to 17 points in this game. This really had become a battle of the big men, as after a perfect high-low feed from Nesterovic, a nimble finish plus the foul from Tim Duncan, wow. Tracy McGrady continuing to work from the mid-block, not quite a post-up, not quite a perimeter ISO, just smooth operating from T-Mac. Bruce Bowen wasn't solely a defensive stopper, a corner 3 was cash after a nice find from Tony Parker. Bowen actually led the NBA in 3-point percentage back in 02-03. McGrady was off on a tough pull-up attempt from deep, he was just 1 for 7 from 3 and never really looked comfortable from that range in this game. With a foot on the line, Devon Brown converted a deep jumper for 2, and moments later, Devon Brown again with a deep jumper and again with his foot on the line. Okay, enough is enough. Let me do some research here, alright? Devon Brown was undrafted, played for 7 teams, played 8 years in the NBA. Yeah, I've still never heard of him. Beno Udrih with a tough finish in the paint, giving the Spurs a 4-point lead heading into the fourth quarter. Tracy McGrady was 6 for 17 coming into the fourth, but for the first time in the game, he was able to get all the way to the rim for an easy lefty layup. On the Rockets' next possession down, I mean, this is just gorgeous. A head fake right, a fade left, and poor Manu Ginobili could do nothing about it. In addition to being a fan favorite to this day, Tracy McGrady was also an NBA superstar that clearly had the respect of his many peers, including the late great Kobe Bryant, who had a similar path to the NBA as T-Mac and knew the lanky wingman had a couple strengths that he didn't possess.
Well, yeah, but he was freaking freakishly more athletic and taller than I was.
And I had to get his work ethic. Because I was a little bit more reserved and never been around, somebody worked as hard as he did.
I mean, Kobe was wildly athletic in his own right, so that really does speak to what McGrady had going on as a youngster. It's always fun to think about how great a certain player could have been if he had another attribute, like if Shaq had Steph Curry's shooting ability or whatever. But imagine if literally any other player had Kobe's work ethic. I mean, who knows what other player could have been an all-time great. Oh, also, this clip doesn't really apply to this video, but I need to share it.
We didn't play one-on-one.
First of all, did you go to Germany?
We did play one-on-one.
We wasn't keeping score. What we were doing...
Who wasn't keeping score?
Who wasn't keeping score? Oh man, the way he delivered that line, and you just know he wasn't joking. Kobe, man, amazing. Flash forward, under 7 minutes remaining in the game now. Duncan made his way to the line and converted a pair. Moments later, Devon Brown went 2 for 2 as well. Under 5 left in the game now, somehow T-Mac was able to drop off for Yao, who used his strong positioning to finish over Duncan. Things were starting to slip for the Rockets, however. After grabbing his own offensive rebound, Duncan was able to finish with his left plus the harm. To stretch the Spurs lead to 9, Devon Brown again making an impact with a tough finish. Then, to put the Spurs up double figures, Devon Brown again. This time a little hook shot in the paint. A tough spinner from McGrady was missed, but Yao was credited for a tip and finish, although I think that may have been an own goal from Duncan. It was down to brass tacks for Houston, and there was a lid on the Spurs basket. A pair of misses from Andre Barrett on the same possession, and moments later...
It's a 3-on-1. Sure pulls up for the 3 and comes up short. Oof. And the Rockets are hearing it from the crowd now.
Yes, those were boos you were hearing from Rockets faithful. Desperation time, Yao with another strong putback dunk. Then a steal and flush from Scott Padgett to bring them back within 6. Giving them just a smidge of hope. With 44 seconds left now, Devon Brown intentionally fouled. He'd convert both from the line to re-extend the San Antonio lead to 8. And here we are. I've tried to avoid spoiling what's about to happen for the sake of drama, but if you know, you know. I've decided to show you this iconic NBA moment twice, however. First, let's all watch how it unfolded. With 35 seconds remaining, Tracy McGrady was able to lose Bruce Bowen with a timely high screen. From straight away beyond the arc, T-Mac was able to nail it. Just his second triple of the game, by the way. 2 more free throws put home by Devon Brown for the Spurs, a 7-point game. McGrady backed down, once again able to use a screen, this time from Yao, and...
Rockets looking for a quick shot. Bowen is all over McGrady. Foul is picked up. A potential 4-point play. Tracy McGrady from downtown, and Tim Duncan could not get out of the way. Called for the foul.
Yeah, not the brightest moment there from Duncan. That was a phenomenal make from Tracy, though, to be fair, and he made the free throw. Good execution defensively from the Rockets to foul Tim Duncan. Not necessarily a free throw ace, but Timmy D coming up clutch. He put both through. Final timeout taken by the Rockets with 16 seconds left on the clock. And if I was a betting man, I think Tracy McGrady was probably getting this ball.
Barrett can't find anybody. They have no timeouts remaining. Finally gets it in to McGrady. McGrady over Bowen for the throw. Yes! Yes! Tracy McGrady cuts it to a 2-point lead.
I mean, I tried to warn you, Spurs. 10 points from T-Mac in the blink of an eye. Just a ridiculous display of tough shot making from the Houston Star. But with no timeouts remaining, if the Spurs simply managed to execute with 11 seconds left, this was still their game to win.
Trying to make things difficult for Brent Barry. Gets it in. Devon Brown lost it. Here comes McGrady. No timeouts remaining. McGrady for the win. Yeah! 1.7 to go. San Antonio with no timeout. Here's Parker, and the Rockets steal a game.
How do you do that? How do you do that?
I don't know.
What the hell is going on?
What? I've decided to show you this iconic NBA moment twice, however. Second, let's dive a little bit deeper and break it all down. Down 8, the first 3 of the onslaught from T-Mac was actually the easiest. As the run went on, the difficulty of his attempts was certainly ratcheted up. He used a sturdy screen set by Scott Padgett to get to the top of the 3-point arc. Bruce Bowen probably could have fought a bit harder to get through that screen, and Malik Rose was put on an island. putting up little to no fight as T-Mac lifted and connected. I'll point out here that the Spurs' execution was remarkably strong down the stretch, the final possession notwithstanding, but they didn't turn the ball over, they kept making their free throws. But there's nothing they could do on the second three from McGrady. I don't begrudge Bowen from not fighting through a Yao Ming screen. I actually do have to fault Tim Duncan. Look at how far he sags off Yao as he sets the screen. A mental error for sure, as Tim should have been much more protective of the three-point line at this point. He attempted to make a late recovery, but there's a reason T-Mac was the two-time reigning scoring champ. A perfect blend of balance, touch, and control to get it to go. Once again made free throws from the Spurs, and the game was nearly ended as Andre Barrett struggled to find an outlet on the inbounds. He eventually did get the ball into McGrady's hands, and obviously Bruce Bowen probably couldn't play better defense here if he tried. But maybe a double team San Antonio? Tony Parker started in prime position to force the ball out of T-Mac's hands, and at this point, who cares if he dishes it off to Andre Barrett? That would have been a win for you. Still though, ridiculous shot over Bowen. Jeff Van Gundy thought so too.
We had played such a horrible game up until this point, and the shots you're seeing, they look like, oh yeah, okay, I remember that. This is against Bruce Bowen, Tim Duncan, the elite of the elite.
He's got 4 guys between him and the basket.
It was a joke.
And we get to the final, fateful possession for San Antonio. They get the ball into Devon Brown, which seemed wise as he'd gone 8 for 8 from the stripe, but my guy simply dropped the ball. I mean, that was basically an unforced error on his part. And at this point, I have no suggestions for the Spurs. Trying to corral and double or triple team a streaking player in transition is quite honestly a fool's errand. By the time T-Mac actually did pull up, it was amid 4 black jerseys, there was contact as he landed, and literally none of it mattered. This display from Tracy McGrady is obviously iconic, and I'm honestly not sure what I find more impressive. The feat itself to score 13 points in 33 seconds, or the sheer difficulty of the shots he was making. Either way, I'm sure Jeff Van Gundy was over the moon happy that his team pulled that game out.
You know, don't get all high off of one guy's heroics effort, and he was just going off.
It was like a one-man wrecking crew. We had played so awful. Like, you know, they say you gotta honor the process. Well, the process sucked.
Yeah, okay, Jeff. We all know you fist pumped something serious once you got back to your office. Come on. For what was a legendary moment in NBA history, I'll give the final word on the action to the legend Yao Ming.
But you know what I tell my neighbor after that night when I drove home? Because he turned off the TV minutes before the game was over. I tell him that, T-Mac and I scored 15 points in the last minutes to turn the game around.
The legacy of Tracy McGrady's 13 points in 33 seconds moment is fairly simple to explain. That type of outburst hadn't happened prior, hasn't happened since, and won't happen in the future. It just won't. Like Kobe scoring 81 points or Russell Westbrook averaging a triple-double over the course of 5 seasons, there's certain statistical achievements in NBA history that most everyone can collectively agree is a once-in-a-lifetime thing to witness. It's been 16 and a half years since this epic evening in Houston, yet anybody who has remote interest in the NBA will know in an instant what you're referring to if you bring up 13 and 33. Or that time T-Mac scored 1,000,000 points in only a few seconds. It's one of only a handful of moments in NBA history that has transcended generations of fans. It's a memory that, one way or another, is implanted into basketball fans' minds, whether you watch the game live or not. Unfortunately, as great as this moment in time was for Tracy McGrady and Rockets fans, the T-Mac in Houston experience never reached those heights again. Under the leadership of McGrady and Yao, the Rockets would qualify for the playoffs in 2005, but fell in the first round to the Dallas Mavericks. Over the next 4 seasons, the Rockets would make the playoffs 3 more times, but never advance past the second round. And in the process saw McGrady's body start to break down, culminating in Tracy playing just 35 games during the 08-09 season and missing the entirety of the playoffs. Similarly, his running mate Yao Ming routinely battled injury during this stretch, and it was far too common for the 2 superstars to be on the sideline rather than on the court dominating together. Tracy McGrady was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2017, while Yao made the cut in 2016. leaving this era of the Rockets as one of the most intriguing what-if scenarios in recent NBA history. Oh yeah, I guess I should also mention where the 2005 Spurs went from this moment. Well, they somehow recovered from this devastating loss, won 59 regular season games, devastated a 10-year-old Jay Canada by beating Steve Nash and the Phoenix Suns in the West Finals, before taking down the Pistons in an epic 7-game NBA Finals battle to clinch a championship. You know, nothing too exciting, just typical Spurs behavior. For each game covered here on Basketball Cinema, I'll be giving out 3 awards, beginning with the Clint Hawkeye Barton Award for Most Underrated Performer.
I don't care.
Which goes to, well, yeah, this is tough. See, Yao and T-Mac scored 60 of the 81 points for Houston, so nobody really deserves it from that team. Oh, I've got it. The award goes to Devon Brown. I had no clue who the dude was, but he scored an efficient 20 points for the Spurs, made a bunch of free throws, and also made the crucial error to give Houston the ball and the win. So he made an impact for both teams. The Rick Dalton Award for Most Recognizable Moment goes to, well, I mean, that whole 33 seconds was a pretty recognizable moment, yes. But I want to specifically point to the reactions to the final shot. Firstly, the iconic T-Mac celebration, easily a 10 out of 10 on the Tiger Woods official fist pump scale. Then we got an ahead of its time memeable moment, as Devon Brown looked on in disbelief. I mean, that would be all over Twitter if this happened today. And finally, the Mark Jackson,
with all due respect,
award for weirdest moment in this game goes to Steve Kerr dunking on plus minus as a stat.
That's one of those, oh really stats? They're better with dunking on the floor? Oh really? I didn't know that.
You see, it's funny because this was before the NBA started tracking actual plus minus as a stat, yet people already thought it was a silly metric. Steve Kerr was way ahead of his time as a broadcaster. And that's it. The Houston Rockets beat the San Antonio Spurs 81-80 on December 9th, 2004. It was Tracy McGrady's greatest moment in a Houston Rockets jersey, the quickest volume scoring display we've ever seen. If you enjoyed this episode of the show, please consider dropping a like down below. And if you can see yourself watching a few more of these in the future, maybe a lot, I'd suggest hitting that subscribe button as well. Also, leave me a comment down below on literally anything from this video. They all help the YouTube algorithm. Next week, we'll be taking a look at the king of the triple-double. Finally. But until then, I'm Jay Canada, and this has been Basketball Cinema. While it didn't even more smooth was even he used a strong streak. I can't do it. True, with a foot on the line, Kobe was wildly athletic. Okay, to finish over. McGrady back down once again. Okay, he used a strong. Oh my goodness.